Ron Chisholm. I'm the author of 2 books here at academia.edu, both of which are entitled Uncle Tom's Uncle, but with different subtitles. I'll talk about those books a little later, along with the reason that I wrote them. But first, I hope that you enjoyed our little walk back in history to a time when, even during segregation, black folks in America relatively thrived. As you saw, there were substantial black-owned and operated businesses all over the country. This was noted, as you'll now see in the following video clip, by a very distinguished black American who was interviewed by members of the Breakfast Club.
You only hear about Black Wall Street. Sometimes you hear about Bronzeville in Chicago. Right. I can't remember the town in North Carolina, but we don't hear about that. They were literally those communities all over the country.
That's right. Well, Sweet Auburn and Atlanta, Georgia, that's had all the big hotels, fine restaurants, and everything. In North Carolina, what you're talking about now, see, I grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Let me use that as an example. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and we weren't looking for any social integration. You know why? Because we had our own businesses there. We had our own businesses. My family was part of one that had the only black bus line in the entire United States. The only black bus line. And when I say we had a bus line, I'm not talking about 2 or 3 buses. We had over 500 buses.
Wow.
In Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And guess what? We had that from 1927 up to about 1967. In Winston-Salem, we also had our own cab companies. We had our own restaurants. We had our own hotels. We had our own school systems. And the bus lines, an example, we don't kill our buses.
Right.
Social integration.
The speaker you just saw is Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Anderson was an assistant secretary of the United States Department of Commerce in the President Jimmy Carter administration, where he chaired a commission that both funded and directed economic activities for U.S. governors and their states. Now, let's go back in time to the year 1953 and listen to what the then U.S. Secretary of the Department of Commerce said about the power of black economics back then.
Facts. Here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, some amazing facts and figures about this new market have been uncovered. For a first-hand report, we would like to take you directly to the United States Department of Commerce to hear this story from the Secretary of Commerce himself. Here is the Honorable Sinclair Weeks, the Secretary of Commerce of the United States.
In the Department of Commerce, we are constantly alert to trends that mean a healthier national economy, better business for the nation as a whole. Recently, we have been interested in a rising young market, one that represents a huge potential for goods and services. I'm referring to the new Negro market. The tremendous buying power of this group is backed, of course, by an increased earning power. The average Negro family's income is at a record high. In fact, since 1939, it has increased more than the average income of all other Americans. Just take a look at a few figures. An official Department of Commerce report shows that at least 1/3 of the Negroes living in cities earn from $2,000 to $5,000 a year. Today, the average Negro wage earner brings home a paycheck 4 times larger than the one he collected in 1939. As a whole, the Negro market has a total income of about $15 billion every year. And after taxes, Negro families still have many billions of dollars to spend. Here is a buying power that cannot help but have a tremendous effect on our national economy and on business prosperity in general. When these dollars are spent for a wide range of goods, services, and employment, business everywhere is bound to feel the impact.
You saw pictorial evidence of black-owned and operated businesses that existed all over the United States pre-1960s. You then heard oral testimony of the same by Dr. Claude Anderson. Next, you heard oral testimony offered by Mr. Sinclair Weeks, who served as the Secretary of the United States Department of Commerce between the years 1953 and 1958. You heard him talk about the rapidly growing power and economic influence of the black community back then. Now what I'd like to do is share with you my experience during the 1950s when I was growing up. And this was on the south side of Chicago alone. 2 hospitals, black owned and operated and black founded. Provident Hospital and Ida Mae Scott Hospital. Doctor's offices, black owned and operated. Dental offices, black owned and operated. Our father, whenever my brother and I needed to have our checkups or go to the dentist, we never had to walk to 51st and Calumet to the train station to board the train to go downtown. We just walked to the doctor's office or to the dental office. As far as the hospital, I did have a very bad experience. Once I injured my head. I was bleeding all over the place when I was a 16-year-old in high school, fooling around, doing something I shouldn't have been doing. And the gym instructor, he wrapped my head with a wet towel and drove me less than a mile to Provident Hospital, where I was worked on by 2 nurses who were stitching me up and at the same time just talking like black folks talk. They were so professional. I was actually scared, but they were speaking, you know, like in the neighborhood. One of them was saying, "Girl, did you hear what Willie did?" And she said, "What did he do, girl?" Yeah, and they were just going on and on. I was so comfortable because I was, you know, hey, listen, I've had white doctors, white dentists and all of that. I'm trying to make the point that we were in our own neighborhood and it was not anything unusual. That's where you took me, to the hospital, and I was out of there and you could barely see the little line where the stitches had been placed. So that's my experience. A bank, black owned and operated. An insurance company, black owned and operated. 2 little small supermarkets, mini supermarkets, black owned and operated. Mom and pop stores, black owned and operated. Live poultry shops, black owned and operated. Butcher shops, black owned and operated. 2 taxi cab companies, black owned and operated. Restaurants, black owned and operated. Barbershops, black owned and operated. 2 parent families, rare divorce, and no gun violence. So what happened on the south side of Chicago, where now the south side of Chicago is internationally known as a war zone because so many black youth are killing each other and wounding each other with guns? Well, I'm going to get to that after I talk about my book. But before that, I would like for you to view the following very sad video. This video went viral. I will not mention the young woman's name. You can't see her in the video, but you can hear her speaking. You'll see why I say it's very, very sad. And as far as I'm concerned, it makes the case for my stance concerning the subject of my book, which I'll talk about pretty soon. So watch this video.
Look, y'all, every fucking day my baby daddy come here with 1 fucking meal for my child. But I have 3 other kids. We have 1 kid together, but he only want to come and bring 1 thing to McDonald's. But what about my other kids? How come you can't feed my other kids McDonald's though? Like that's bogus as hell. Like you're not finna sit here and make my other kids feel left out and you're only bringing 1 child something to eat. Look, there he go. And I bet you he only got 1 thing in there. I bet you he don't even... I'm finna expose out of him so people can see how he really is. It ain't more than enough food in that bag for everybody. What's up? Because I'm finna expose you. What? Because that don't look enough for all my kids. That don't look enough for all my kids. What is that? That's just 1 burger? 1 burger, 1 fry?
What he like? What do you mean?
Okay, what about my other kids?
What about your other kids?
Okay, but them your kids' siblings, though.
What are you talking about? What are you mad
Them
about?
my kids, them your kids' siblings, though.
So what you...
So my other kids finna be left out.
You didn't feed them?
You know I don't get my food stamps to the 7th.
Lisa, how is that my problem?
But if you're trying to help out, though, you're not helping out.
I'm not trying to help. I'm trying to help my son.
But how are you helping your son when you're only getting food for just him and not the other kids, his siblings?
Lisa, you had
Them are his siblings,
Lisa,
though.
you had
He's not finna eat in front of all his other siblings, and they're not eating on McDonald's.
Bring
No,
him out- bring
why
him
do
out-
I gotta put?
Bring him out to the car. I'll let him eat
No,
the
no. He's not finna eat that shit at all if you can't bring enough for everybody.
Lisa, so you telling me that I gotta bring? So when I bring my son food, I gotta bring your kids food too now?
Yes.
You sound f***ing dumb.
How is that shit dumb? You
That's
sound
my-
dumb.
I
You
have-
sound dumb.
Where are they daddies at? Nobody told you to talk to them other. You had them other kids. They're your responsibility. They're not my responsibility.
Okay, but if you're gonna bring one, you need to bring it for all. How do that shit look that I'm letting one child eat McDonald's and all the rest of the kids can't eat no fucking McDonald's?
So
You know I get
say
food
there are
stamps on the
4
11th.
That ain't 3 kids that ain't mine. 3 kids that ain't mine. What do
Yeah,
I look like? I bring
they're
my-
his
I
siblings.
bring him
You
food.
knew what you was getting into when you had a baby with me.
No, the f- I did.
Yes, you did.
You expect me to take care of all the kids? They're not my kids.
Okay, but you still had a baby with me who have kids with other people. I still have other kids.
Why are you recording me? First of all,
Because I'm exposing you. Everybody think you such a motherfucking good daddy.
I am a good daddy.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You're full of shit in this bullshit. You only come here with one fucking piece of food for one child.
The child that's mine, silly.
No, that's dumb that you can't feed the other kids. Don't feed nobody at all
Listen,
then. He
you
can't
had-
take that shit.
Listen what
He
you
can't
said.
eat it.
Maybe if you had 1 or 2, I can maybe. You got it's 4, it's 3 extra kids. What the f? You all like going to my motherfucking account, spending money on all those kids. Them not my kids.
Them are your kids' siblings, though. Dumb.
So that's what you gonna go with? That's the one you gonna
Those
go
are your fucking kids' siblings.
They're my, so that means I
Yeah.
take care of them.
So don't.
where's
No,
the-
I didn't say you had to take care of them. You can bring them something to eat if you bring one something to eat.
I bring them food every other day. What do you mean? I'm not-
Exactly, but you don't never bring food for the other ones. You know I get my food stamps on the
They are
11th.
your babies.
Okay,
They
but
not
I'm
mine.
saying we share the
If you-
same
if you-
kid
if you-
as well.
Absolutely. So if you want to, if you feel like I feel the way about eating, take him in the room and let him.
I'm not taking my kid
Or
in the
send him down
room.
to the car. He ain't even got. He ain't got to eat in front of his brothers and sisters. He can come right out to the car and eat with me. Is that
No,
fine?
no. You know what? Fine. Give it here.
Thank you.
Give it
Grow
here.
up, bro. Like,
Give it
you
here.
know, kids,
Give
like,
it here.
You sound stupid.
Dumb. He ain't eating this. You.
Why would you just do that?
Because you ain't bringing up for all the other kids. You stupid. Stupid. Selfish as a like you're dumb as hell. You're dumb as hell. He not finna eat that shit. Dumb.
Take care of him anyway.
Dumb. He not finna do that. If you can't do it for all, don't do it for none of them. Bye, stupid. Thought I was finna take that shit today. Yeah, I had another thing for him today. No, he can't take it today.
You saw it. I didn't say it. I didn't create it. As I told you, it was going to be sad. And I'm going to say something else. Never, ever would you have seen that scene pre-1960s. Wouldn't have happened. Impossible. And had that young woman lived during the 1950s and got pregnant, came home and told her mother, she would have said, girl, you going down south to grandma, and you going to stay there and have that baby, and don't you dare come back until you have either a skill and the prospect of having some work or a man. Or both. That's for real. You heard it. Very, very seldom would that happen. And because, for one thing, just the embarrassment, and your parents would tell you, especially your mother, they didn't feel bad telling you. Your mother would say, let me tell you something. And she would say it to the son or the daughter. If you ever embarrass me, I'm going to slap the taste out of your mouth, and I'm going to knock you into next week. Personally, I never knew anyone of us kids that wanted to even know what it meant to be knocked into next week. So my block and my whole neighborhood and the whole South Side was cool, because all parents were teaching the same thing. I'm not Christian, but I can tell you, the Christianity as adhered to by the black community pre-1960s was gold. The values that were taught, because people went to church, by the preacher that came out of the Bible, Jesus' life, I guess the Old Testament some, and the parables and things like that were taught. You heard it. You might be, you a boy, being a little mischievous, and Aunt Gladys, and she's nobody's auntie, is up in the third floor window and say, "Boy, you think Jesus gonna like that?" And you go, no, Aunt Gladys, I'm sorry. I know how that sounds, but it was just that thick. You would not have seen that scene. All right. I'll get back to that. Let's get on now to my books. The first book is entitled Uncle Tom's Uncle, with a subtitle of The Case for Reparations and Why I Don't Want Them. Let me first say that I am not against those whom I call PRAs, pro-reparation advocates. I am not against their effort. I am not against them. I am not against their belief and their sincerity. Their emphasis is to attempt to obtain reparations for the United States government. I am not against the United States government deciding to extend reparations to black people. I also want you to know that there are very prominent and very highly educated and very successful black men and women who are pro-reparation advocates. I happen to believe that there is a focus that black people should pay attention to that is infinitely more important than spending energies of trying to obtain reparations from the United States government. That's just my belief. I wouldn't argue with anyone about it. I'd like to name a few of the very prominent pro-reparation advocates. One is Dr. William Darity. He obtained his PhD, he's a black man, from the London School of Economics, as I recall. He sets the bill to the United States government for reparations for black people at between $10 and $12 trillion. That works out to be, he says, approximately $800,000 per black person who qualifies, meaning that person could prove that he can trace his ancestry back to slavery. Another prominent person is Dr. Boyce Watkins. He is also a pro-reparations advocate. He's obtained his PhD in finance. In the year that he obtained his PhD in finance, he was the only black person in the United States to obtain a PhD in finance. I think he also has a master's degree in statistics. And I believe he has a bachelor's in math. So he is a very, very highly qualified academically. He is also a multimillionaire, and he made himself a multimillionaire by conducting his own business. He also has online business courses for people. Even white people take the business courses, I found out. And he also teaches how to invest. A third person who is a pro-reparation advocate is Dr. Claude Anderson, whom I spoke to you before. I'm wondering how he's feeling these days. I saw a recent a video interview of him by Dr. Watkins, and he's always been very loving. He loves black people for real, but he's getting a little frustrated, and I'm wondering now how he thinks about the reparations. Again, I don't have any problem, people like that who are very prominent, very serious, that causes me to, raise my eyebrow a little bit, but I'm adamant on my belief that there's something else that's more important to focus on, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Now to the second book. The second book is entitled Uncle Tom's Uncle, second edition, and it has a different subtitle. it's a three-part. There are three parts to the subtitle. It's kind of cumbersome, but I needed all of those in the subtitle. The first part of the subtitle is reparations or preparations. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining that. For anything in life that you need, you have to prepare for it. Okay? That's common sense. And that's what I believe one of the things I believe that our people should focus on, preparation. All right, the second part, the second third of the subtitle is the love of war. Now, I'm not talking about loving or liking going out in battle with machine guns and grenades and tanks and, any of that. That's not what I'm talking about. Personally, I don't know of anyone who likes or love war. Maybe a mercenary, mercenaries, I guess, would actually they like money. So that's what they like, Whether or not they like their profession, I don't know. They say you should like your profession, so maybe he would like war. But personally, I don't know anyone, and I don't have a secret army, just to be joking a little bit, that's going to go and take our reparations. No, I'm not talking about that form of war. I'm talking about the war against yourself, the war against your weaknesses, the war against cowardice, the war against fear, the war against doubt, dissipation of energies, the war against scapegoating, the war against illusion, procrastination, hesitance, irresponsibility, those kinds of wars. That is the war that we should, quote, love to be involved in. In the Islamic world, the founder of the religion of Islam, his name was Prophet Muhammad. Well, his name was Muhammad ibn Abdullah. But anyway, he said that the greatest war, jihad, is the jihad of the self, where, again, you fight your weaknesses. Okay, so that's that part of the subtitle. Third part of the subtitle is the return of the souls of black folks. So the whole subtitle is reparations or preparations, or the love of war and the return of the souls of black folks. Now, what I mean by the souls of black folks, I'm talking about pre-1960s black folks specifically. And what I mean when I say the souls of black folks, I'm actually talking about the SHVs, strong high values that black people possessed, that animated their souls. That's the best way to put it. That you had to have values, strong values, especially under segregation and problems that we were having. But our people, that's how they were able to obtain all of those businesses and not concern themselves with whites. Actually, this is a little aside, but as I witnessed it, the whole of the 50s, white people had no relevance in the minds of black people. They weren't talked about, thought about, desired. Actually, white people functioned as entertainment for black folks on television. There were these sitcoms, these really great sitcoms, like I Love Lucy and Our Miss Brooks. And the ladies really liked the soap operas and stuff like that. And the men, because me and my dad, we used to look at the Lone Ranger and the Westerns, Hopalong Cassidy, Maverick, Jim Bowie, Daniel Boone, what's this other guy? Bat Masterson. Wow, that was really good. That's who white folks were for us. Just entertainment. I'm not trying to be. It's just the way it was. We had our own life. We had our own community. It was like having your own nation. Really, we had our own culture. Everything was fine. We had, as I showed you, everything in the community that we needed without going outside of the community. Anyway, so the next thing that I want to talk about is what happened that the south side of Chicago went down. And these communities that we had around the country went down. These vibrant, economically strong, self-sufficient, independent communities, what happened? Well, there is a belief, and I believe it because I witnessed it, not because I'm a social theorist. I'm not a social theorist. Dr. Anderson, he would be better able to speak about this than I am. I'm going to give you my perspective from what I saw. Okay? When the 60s came and the emphasis on civil rights came, there was an overemphasis on integration and an underemphasis, almost just throwing away the idea of self-sufficiency, of having your own business. The talk now was we have to open the doors, get the doors open. The whites have to open the doors. And maybe that was okay because now you could go to stores without people saying you can't come in here or whatever. You could eat in restaurants without being told you can't come. That's fine. But as Dr. Claude Anderson once put it, he said, it was understandable that after all of this bad experience we'd had in the United States and segregation, that we partied for a while. He said, well, we went too long. So one thing that happened was this overemphasis on integration. The other thing that happened, and I'm putting this in my own words, is the overemphasis on rights, civil rights movement. We should expect our rights as citizens. We should expect human rights. But when the war on poverty started, as Judge Joe Brown says, no one could have ever imagined that what came out of that, and this is the welfare system that developed, no one could have ever imagined that it would be used in a way where generations of black folks would end up on welfare. Generations. The reason Judge Joe Brown said that no one ever imagined that is because there have been black people who have said that the war on poverty was a conspiracy, a conscious conspiracy by Johnson and the U.S. government to destroy the black community over a period of time. I believed what Judge Joe Brown says. He says, no, that was not the case. The war on poverty was created for legitimate reasons, but no one ever imagined that it would be used in a way that would cripple the black community. So the rights, the push for rights, that's good. You push it for your rights, but now I have the right for my welfare. I have the right for my check. Now, one film documentary that really chronicles that very well just came out on August 16th, 2022. Uncle Tom 2. Watch that film documentary, Uncle Tom 2, and you will see how the black conservatives who put that film documentary together very well documented the crippling impact of the civil rights movement and what it did ultimately to destroy the black community. Now that sounds bad, doesn't it? You're not supposed to say that during Black History Month. That's what happened. Now, I don't know what should go on now. I have my belief, maybe I'm just stuck in the past, that this entrepreneurial spirit, the readoption of SHVs, strong high values, the emphasis on keeping families together, the emphasis on those values coming from religion, whether it's Christianity or Islam or Buddhism or Hinduism or whatever. Those are the things that I believe that black people should focus on, ingest, because we had it at one time. And then another problem that came was the social revolution of the 1960s, in which everything was questioned, and it's still going on. So I'm going to end this right here. I hope everyone understands what I'm trying to do, and I invite you to read my books, especially the second edition. I'd almost prefer that you read the second edition. So please read that. And 6 out of 8 of the chapters are experiential and biographical, because what I believe, more than theories, like critical race theory and all of that crap, is a lived life. The 6 chapters that I write in there, beginning with the chapter entitled "Oh No You Won't," chapter about my mother. I think that's the first one where I begin. Anyway, 6 chapters of the book are dedicated, are experiential and biographical. I like to do it that way, to talk about what happened, what I did to succeed, what I did to help others, scores of others, literally, to succeed in this life. These strong, high values that I adopted. I helped a drug addict get off. He stayed with me in my home for a year. He's now a medical doctor. A lady of the night. I spent 9 months helping her change her profession to a legitimate profession, and she went on to become a wealthy real estate agent, and sent her daughter through college with her own money that she earned from her real estate earnings. So please read the book, because I give inspiring examples in there, not only mine, of other people. And so I invite everyone, whites, blacks, Hispanic, or everyone, to read my book and pass the word. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this little production.